There we go.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
Woo!
It chose to do a fucking podcast.
We really did decide to do this absolute technical nightmare, didn't we?
Goddamn.
Cool.
Well, morning.
Hi. Are you sad? Is your day mixed with an exotic blend of seasonal depression, COVID depression, election depression, and regular depression? Well, you've come to the right place. We're your emotional support gays, Adrian and Lauren.
And the answer to all of those questions is, yeah, I'm gay.
Yeah, we're both very gay and very sad. But we can support you emotionally. Hopefully. That's what we're trying to do, at least.
Something like that. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm a gender fluid queer person who uses they, them pronouns. Et toi.
I'm Lauren Scully. I am a trans woman, she, her pronouns, and a hungover mess with low voice today.
Yeah, yesterday was Halloween, so you can imagine that the both of us are a little groggy, to say the least, but we did party safe.
Zoom parties. Because 2020 is a nightmare.
A goddamn fucking nightmare, and that's why we're here.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
Emotional Support Gaze is hosted by Adrian and Lauren, neither of whom are experts. That said, we invite you to join us for our queer talk show. Trigger warnings should be taken with all episodes, as conversations are freeform and frequently touch on topics that may make listeners and Trump supporters uncomfortable. Thank you for listening. So, you and I have talked about this a lot.
Yeah, we have. The two of us, well, one of us is a gender studies minor. And the other one is just here to have a good time and is the comic relief character. We're both also theater people, so if we ever talk about theater things, deal with it.
Yeah, it's kind of a side effect of being this gay. You just end up in theater.
Yeah, LGBTs.
So this is kind of a podcast where we want to, I guess catalog would be the wrong word, but document people's queer experiences and make them accessible through storytelling and discussion. It's functionally a queer talk show with the side aim of kind of being ContraPoints meets Call Her Daddy. Something along those lines.
Along those lines.
Yeah. And we're, 3 days out from a national election.
Woo!
The state is on damn fire. The world feels like it's coming to an end, and it's been a really crap year.
It has been really horrible, but we're making it work, you know?
Something like that.
You know, at least we live in a state where weed is legal, so... Well, do we each want to give, a brief, summary of, our own queer experiences, a SparkNotes version?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I came out as queer before I came out as trans in, middle school, and it was really weird and had something to do with the Deadpool movie.
Hold on.
Yeah, no, so in high school, I started dating this girl, and she and I were, really close friends for a long time before we started dating, and before that, everybody in my inner circle were like, are you dating this person? You guys are really close. Are you dating this person? And it got to the point where my mom was like, are you dating this person? And I was like, no, I'm not. And then we were, and then we went to go see Deadpool on Valentine's Day as a date. And we had to have my sister come along because we were both underage to see Deadpool by ourselves. And before I, went on this date, I, talked to my mom. I was like, hey, I'm going on a date with so-and-so. And she was like, okay, well, I'm not jumping for joy, but I'm not going to kick you out or anything. And I was like, fuck it, I'll take it. And then
Something.
I went out on that. And then I kind of lived as, a cis lesbian for a really long time. And then I came to college and I was like, I don't think I'm cis. I don't think I really identify with, femininity.
Society. Ew.
I don't think I fit in with society at all, to be completely honest, I don't think I ever have. So I came out to you as gender fluid, and you helped me start using they, them pronouns. And this was, like, after my freshman year. And then, literally this year, after, like, in April, my co-star told me to give myself a new name. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to change my name because, you know, I can't contain all this tran, you know?
Mood.
So here I am.
I think it's really funny that we've never talked about the fact that we both saw Deadpool in theaters on Valentine's Day that year.
Oh my god.
That was my first R-rated movie in a theater.
That's funny. Mine was Pirates of the Caribbean.
Was Pirates R?
No, wait, that's a lie. Mine was Don't Mess with the Zohan, and I was like 6.
That sounds scarring.
It was horrible. Anyways.
I just think that that's oddly fortuitous.
It really is.
My first encounter with queerness was when I was 6 years old. My younger sister, she's about 3 years younger than me. She and I used to have to take baths together growing up. And around the age of 6, I was able to understand that she did not have a penis. And I was very confused by this. Had kind of a Freudian moment with it and was just like, where did it go? What happened to it? Who took it? You know, like freaking out at this idea.
Who took your penis? Tell me.
No, I straight up asked her that, but I think I phrased the question as, who took your penis, or what is that called? And she was 3, so she didn't know. How I knew the word penis at 6. Anyway, so I remember finally after a little bit playing around with this taboo, I finally turned to my mom and I was like, what happened to my sister's penis? And she's like, well, she's a girl. Girls don't have penises. To which I, in a brilliant moment that I will never match at any point in my life, turned to my mom and said, well, wait, I wanted to be a girl. Why can't I be a girl? And my mom was very lovely about it. She responded as best she could as a Catholic, and a fairly devout Catholic at the time, and essentially was like, well, God made you a boy, God wanted you to be a boy. So I repressed that shit for 11 years. My senior year of high school, after years of just repressing and pushing myself into the closet and, you know, ignoring the fact that I'm searching up how to turn into a mermaid online.
The fucking WikiHow article, like, how to convince your friends that you're, like, secretly a mermaid at school.
Yeah, it was bad. There was a period of time where I thought I was a werewolf. That was just puberty.
Also, werewolves are such, like, a good analogy for being gay.
Honestly, yeah, unless Rowling writes them.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Another episode. But when I was 17, and this is the severely shortened version of my coming out story, but when I was 17, I came out as bisexual because I had a massive crush on this person that I went to school with. And that didn't go very well. So it just kind of wasn't a thing for a year, and then I started to figure out that there was something up with my gender, and a close friend of mine, Olivia, ended up coming out of the closet, and I just ended up sending her a shitload of questions and shit that I had about it because I was just so confused by the concept of gender at the time. Mm-hmm. Long story short, I came out in a Freudian slip over text.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
I was in a group chat of people, and I had been trying out names on fucking Omegle. I had laid it all out. Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm a girl. I use she, her, you know, whatever. And I had it copy-pasted. And then we got that National Geographic issue. It came out right around the trans turning point with the little trans girl on the front. And, you know, there's this beautiful picture in the middle of it that is just the most diverse image that I had ever seen. It was people of all ethnicities, all genders, all sexualities, and just like this essentially class photo of queerness.
Nice.
I loved it. And so I had taken a picture of it and I was going to send it to my friends, and I thought that it was copied, forgetting that my phone can't do that. And I pasted in and sent, and then realized about 5 seconds later what I had said.
Oh no.
I later learned that Olivia was in therapy when all that happened, and so like she literally, her phone starts going off and she just casually looks down and looks up at her therapist and she's like, can I take this? So thank you, Olivia's therapist. I came out to my parents 3 days after I graduated high school. And started transitioning that summer, and then came up to college and haven't fucking looked back. You know, hormones, I'm not really worried about a lot of things, so
Yeah.
here we are.
Here we are. I was gonna say I kind of have a similar story to your "Where's Your Penis" one, because when I was younger, I was just using the bathroom at like one of my like extended family's houses, and I didn't lock the door, so like a family member like accidentally opened the door and then closed it when they saw me in there dropping trow, and I had shouted, "Don't look at my penis." And then they had to explain to me, like, "Oh, you don't have one of those." And I think I got, like, really angry about it. I was like, why don't I fucking have a... What? You know?
Yeah.
But now I do have one, emotionally.
I feel like genital dysphoria is a really easy one to happen early on.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's, like, developmentally normal for kids to question their gender.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, not standard for them to then repress their gender for 17 years.
Yeah, with me it was really weird because my parents like had me set up as like their golden child sort of deal. Like
Right.
I was this blonde blue-eyed baby, and my like, yeah, this is as bad as it sounds, guys. Like my parents were so obsessed with that, and they were like, oh my god, like fawning over me all the time, wanting to make sure that like I kept my like natural appearance and whatnot. And, like, looking at me now, I very like, clearly rebelled against that, because now I'm a very tattooed, pierced, my hair is dyed blue, you know?
Adrian is the stereotypical blue-haired liberal snowflake,
Hey!
and there's no fucking in between.
There's really no in between, but they, like, really forced me into this, like, T-Rad box, you know? Like, this trad femme box, you know?
Oof.
And I hated it, because then they would also give me these weird little leeways where... I had an older sister growing up who was, like, very, very masculine, and I looked up to her so much, and I was like, I want to be like her, you know, like, and so I started wearing flannel and, like, Converse and, like, ripped jeans and stuff like that, and I cut my hair, and I started, like, going against this thing that my parents were forcing me into, but then they also switched and would start shaming me for being feminine. So as I got older, it was like I remember like I was taking one of those stupid fucking like quizzes on like some website, and it was like, would Justin Bieber date you, you know, or like something stupid like that. And I didn't like him. I was never into like One Direction or Justin Bieber at the time, but I did grow curious, you know. And my mom, like, saw me on that website and was like, what the fuck? Like, oh, you like Justin Bieber? And, like, totally made fun of me about it. And then,
Wow.
you know, when I would get emotional, they would try to, like, teach me, like, to not be so emotional. You know, how a lot of, like, men are, you know, sort of brainwashed into thinking it's like you're not allowed to be emotional. And it became like a really weird, like, sort of 180 where all of a sudden I was being shamed for being feminine, and before I was being shamed for being masculine. So I was very confused for the longest time, and like I feel like that's led up to a lot of like how I identify now today. You know, I feel like the way I now express femininity is radical because I was told I wasn't supposed to growing up. And the same way of being masculine, you know, I'm not supposed to be masculine. I'm going to be both of them because fuck you, you know? And like that's just how I experience my gender fluidity. I also just really don't identify with like any traditional form of like how people perform masculinity or femininity, you know? Like, I always feel like I'm either a mix or the two or one or the other. But if I'm one or the other, it's still, like, elevated, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Like, I experience femininity in the way that, like, femininity is expressed in, like, drag clubs, you know? Like, that's hyperbole, it's an over-exaggeration, and it's really not whatever you see, like, these bright colors, you know? At least in, like, day-to-day life. And that's just how I experience it. But from not a cis female perspective.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a rant, but like,
Hey, you know what? That's
you
okay.
know, like non-binary people have a lot of cause a lot of discourse online, you know, and you know, especially non-binary people who don't medically transition. And I, as some trans meds say, you know, they perform and they dress as their assigned gender at birth, and it's like, no, I fucking don't, you know.
Right.
I really do not. So I always feel like I have to like defend every single aspect of how I identify and like give an over explanized version of it, you know, because, you know, I'm constantly worried being perceived as, you know, somebody who's not really trans, which is stupid, you know?
Valid. Gender is really heavily policed, and that's a general fact of our society, especially lately right now, as there is a little bit more division, as we are starting to see things like transmedicalism start to take hold in the queer community. That is kind of coming back into our discourse, because there's less of that common enemy right now. Which is, you know, ultimately probably a good thing. And may not be true in the next 5 years, but...
Yeah.
Especially post gay marriage being legalized in the US, there is a shift to, I hesitate to call them identity politics, but certainly identity scrutiny. And certainly a level of people who have already made their way through this world in one way and didn't know other ways are more likely to get set in those ways. It's an argument that I have with another one of my queer friends. You know, he ends up on Grindr, and there are a lot of older guys on there, and older guys are kind of weird on Grindr sometimes. And he's like, they're just, you know, he was talking about how there just aren't that many of them, and they're all weird and strange, and I don't like that. I turned to him and I was like, well, what's weird and strange about them? And he's like, they're just very conservative. I'm like, well, they probably come by that as a fact of age.
Yeah.
It's something, I mean, this is the generation that fought and survived AIDS. Of course they're a little jaded politically.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things he talked about is a lot of them aren't voting. And he was really mad about this. And he's like, I refuse to fuck someone who won't vote, which, please, by all means, refuse to fuck people who won't vote.
I mean, yeah, that's totally yeah.
Absolutely. But we ended up talking about it, and I brought up, well, you know, these guys in particular are people who grew up in a time where the government didn't fucking listen if you voted or didn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's still relatively true now, but in AIDS especially, it was a problem. The government wouldn't listen to the damn pandemic going on, which is still ongoing.
Yeah.
And something we see mirrored in the COVID response.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's where a lot of the gatekeeping comes from.
Totally. Yeah, it's like I understand parts of it, you know? Like, I just want to, like, maybe sort of open a dialogue to help, you know, older queer people sort of understand where this, like, younger generation is coming from, and also explain that, like, a lot of these sort of identities aren't anything new, you know?
Yeah.
Just as, like, trans people aren't new, because that's what society thought, you know, when, you know, trans issues sort of started coming to light in the press and stuff. It's like, none of this is new, you know?
I just think it is because you saw the trans tipping point.
Yeah, you saw the trans tipping point, so now you think that, like, all these new genders, and it's like, no, like, these have been around forever, and, like, if you did your research, unlike any other culture besides white American culture, or even, like, European culture, you would know,
Yeah,
you know?
It's such a Western thing to say, hey, fuck their genders.
Yeah, you know, it's just so silly. I understand the sort of need to feel like there's some sort of valid argument to the existence of trans people. But, like, there never is going to be a valid argument or, like, any concrete way to explain gender, I don't think. You know? And, like, we need to get over this thing that, like, facts aren't feelings or whatever, because, I mean, I like to argue that they are, you know?
I think so. Well, yeah. It's the thing of, as a culture, Western society has a strong tendency to devalue emotional intelligence and labor.
Yeah.
It is the basis of toxic masculinity, is that emotional intelligence is completely ignored. Emotional intelligence is completely subjective, and it is impossible to quantify, which I think pisses off a lot of people.
Yeah, and, like, they think it's possible to quantify it through, like, psychology, but even that's, like, super iffy. I have a lot of problems with the field of psychiatry and psychology, but, like...
I mean, valid. I will defer to my therapist on anything, but, like, you know, there's a certain level of, at some point, there's only so much that the psych field can do.
Exactly. Like, I defer to my therapist, but I know that I've, like, met some psych students who, like, treat me as, like, a problem to be solved, you know? And I'm like, no, or, like, I know that, the autistic community also has, like, a huge problem with, you know, psych med and stuff like that.
Well, it's the thing of my official diagnosis through my endocrinologist is transsexualism. That's on my record. The entire medical field has this problem of,
Jesus.
especially with that weird in-between space that trans people tend to fit into, of we aren't trying to necessarily solve transness, we're trying to solve the dysphoria problem, or present in a way that we want to. It's certainly not cosmetic, which is the first medical approach of this is an optional procedure that we don't need to have. It absolutely is. It's life-saving, but it's also not a disease. It's not something I'm trying to cure. You know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn to cope with it in a society that refuses to look at it as anything other than a disease medically. And that tends to go to a lot of mental illness. It's the question, this came up in a gender studies class that I was taking. What is the difference between mental illness and high-functioning mental illness? And the separation is that you don't need meds for high-functioning mental illness because you can function in a capitalist environment, or in the environments you are supposed to function, you will function and are sometimes more effective. So it's things like hyperactivity that can be lodged into work. If you are the kind of person, if you have ADHD and can launch yourself into work, they don't try to cure it. But the second that you have ADHD and cannot function in the standard settings that we have created is the second they're trying to cure it.
Yeah.
So it's that weird middle ground.
But yeah, just, you know, talking about transmedicalism and,
Right.
you know, why trans people need to scientifically explain their existence in order to have rights, you know?
Well, and it's a constant defense. It's you know, the first thing my mom said, or I guess this is when I came out as bi, but the first thing my mom says when I come out as bi is, I don't think you are.
And it's like, I don't give a fuck what you think. God damn.
I love my mom, really do, but that first year was rough. And it's that same thing of just like, at some point, there's a level of cis people expect certain behaviors from queer people, and so much of what we deem as a normal transition is a product of those expectations.
And I think that's where a lot of stigma of, like, stereotyping comes from, too, is that, like, you don't want to present the way society expects you to present, I guess.
Right.
But some people do and, like, find a lot of comfort and safety in that. Like, they expect non-binary people to be, like, these sort of androgynous, and I'm going to not use this term a whole lot because I personally feel really uncomfortable with it, but a lot of people expect non-binary people to be like AFAB people with like short hair who like wear button-ups and like probably dyed hair too, you know? And that's not what non-binary is at all. Non-binary is not like a tertiary gender or anything either. It's an umbrella term. And, you know, some people find comfort in presenting that way, and others take that presentation and scrutinize it. You know, it becomes a sort of like, well, then how do I need to present in order to like be a part of this community, you know?
Right.
Like how you don't like me when I try to look the way you expect me to, but then you don't like me when I look the way I want to. So where the fuck do I go? You know?
Right. No, and I mean it's a common problem across the entire queer community. The other thing that I was pointing out about that gatekeeping to that friend was a lot of it comes from conforming to dominance platform, which is this idea of if I am similar enough to the people who hegemonically have the power, then they will let me have a scrap of that power. You know, it's not something most people do consciously. You know, it's the same thing of like, I tend to dress I look relatively straight. Give or take. You know, I don't have blue hair. I do have dyed hair, but I don't have blue hair, you know? And I really generally just do my best to appear as a quote-unquote normal woman, largely because somewhere early on I found that I get treated better that way, you know?
Yeah.
I'm taken more seriously. I'm talked to with more respect. Whereas with, like, pink hair, you know, I was getting weird looks at the coffee shop every morning.
Jeez, yeah. I also get weird looks at the coffee shop all the time. Especially our coffee coffee shop is like littered with cops. So like they always fucking stare at me when I go in on the morning. And like I have my bright blue hair and like I'm dressed in all black and like all this shit. I'm over here trying to present as like pretty much the opposite of you. Like you and I are foils to each other, I feel
really?
like. But I like a lot of my professors, you know, I have this one professor who I don't think he gets it yet. And like he calls like when I'm in a group with like some women, he'll like call all of us ladies, you know, and like he calls me young lady, and I have to like stop myself not a lady because I don't want to have that conversation, you know, like it's 8 in the goddamn morning. I don't want to have to explain to you my gender.
I need a Janet from The Good Place button to just press every time.
Oh my god, I need a button of those so bad.
It's just a Staples button, but you repurpose it to say not a girl.
Not a girl, not a girl, not a girl, you know? And I think that's it's a combination of that and also, you know, gatekeeping people who say that I need to medically transition in order to actually be trans. I have been really considering, you know, taking testosterone and getting top surgery and stuff because as I am now, I have a lot of cis passing privilege. I don't want that, you know, like
Mood.
I don't want people to think that I'm a cis woman. Like that is my biggest thing is because I am fucking not, you know. Like the other day I like open chest binded for the first time since high school because I used to do like, I can't believe I didn't know I was trans in high school, but I had shorter hair. My hair's very long right now, but in high school I had it chopped. I was like obsessed with drag kings back then, and I taught myself how to open chest bind, but I was using fucking like painter's tape and like duct tape, and I was hurting myself. And I was like, no, because I was like, I need this, you know. And I would do it in my bedroom alone, and I would never wear it out. But I was like, just looking in the mirror, like fuck. And then I also like draw like muscles and like abs on myself too. And I was like, God, I want to be a drag king. And I still do. I still want to be a drag performer really bad. Yeah, that's just a funny story. But anyways, I don't want to look like I'm a cis person. You know, that's like a nightmare to me. I want people to like look at me and be sort of confused.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, but basically, you know, a bitch needs sort of thing that's gonna help me identify a little bit better, which honestly I think testosterone might be like the first step for me.
You know what? And I get you. I was in a relationship for a really long time where I couldn't start hormones for various reasons that aren't worth getting into. When I got out of it, I ended up starting suddenly. Best decision of my life, but it was definitely that same question of like a lot of the reason I didn't start earlier was the question of, am I trying to conform to a normal transition or do I actually need this? And the answer was very clearly that I actually need this, but like that was a problem for a long time for me of just like, I don't know why I'm doing this or if I need it, and I felt like I might have been conforming to gatekeepers more and TERFs and their expectations and all that shit. You know, for all my proposed radicalism, I am such a basic trans.
Yeah, I mean, same. I feel like a very basic non-binary person without the stereotypical, like, object name. There's been this joke going around a lot on the internet where it's like non-binary people always choose, like, Rock or, like, Miles, you know, as their name. And I was like, I like Adrian.
I know 3 Miles and 3 Jordans who are non-binary.
That's funny. I only really know a Charlie and
I've got 2 Charlies.
I don't know any people with the same name. I know that my name personally, Adrian, I know a trans guy whose name at first he went from like Ren to Adrian to Andrew, and now he's Andrew.
I love that.
But I'm pretty sure, I don't know, my name came from a lot of different things, because I think a part of it was that. I also look up to him a lot as like transition goals, but he also, his name was Adrian, and I was like, I like that name. Then my mom told me that one of the names that they were going to name me was Adrian, and then they chose another one that's horrible. I hate my dead name for reasons other than the fact that it's my dead name, because I just think it's a stupid name. But they were gonna call me Adrian, and I'm like, fucking why didn't you? And then also fucking Alucard from Castlevania, his name is really Adrian, and I was like, okay, but what if?
Fucking horse.
Listen, I'm a weeb. I didn't think that was obvious enough until I started it, but hi.
What a mood.
I'm not ashamed.
I don't know if I could tell the story of how I got my name on the podcast.
I remember the first time somebody identified me as something other than, a girl. I think I was a sophomore in high school. I was about to be, and I was in Rocky Point of all places. I was in Mexico on a trip with my family. And I had like this kind of short, shaggy hair situation going on. And I walked by, like, I bumped into somebody. I was, like, walking around, and I had, like, this really baggy shirt on, and somebody said, "Oh, excuse me, sir." And I was like, first of all, even if you did see me as a boy, I would look like a 12-year-old, but thank you, Like, I just remember sitting there like, oh my goodness. Somebody thought I was a dude? Holy shit. This is a thing that I can get away with, And I was just like, okay, that was new. I'm gonna repress this. And then
mood.
Recently it hasn't even been like, I think it's been almost 6 months that I've been out with my new name.
Yeah.
And a huge perk of it is that Adrian is a pretty traditionally masculine name. So people without like meeting me usually assume that I'm a guy, and that's been really gender affirming too. That's happened twice already.
That's a lot of why Lauren stuck, is because I wasn't totally sold on it. It was between Lauren and like 6 other names when I came to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I just needed, I was coming in trying to be an actress, which lasted, for all of 15 seconds. But I was coming in trying to be an actress, and I had an interaction where I was just like, I can't put down my dead name on an audition sheet. They need something else so that I can walk in and have them expect me. I remember, like, that's part of how Lauren ended up sticking, it was the one that I started using in jobs and auditions and things like that, as like, oh yeah, this is my name, I'm not totally sold on it, and like, I was sold on it. Like,
Yeah, totally. I remember the first time I was in a fucking Zoom class of all places, and I was in a goddamn drawing art critique. Which is like, if you've ever taken an art class in college, you know that those are hell. And like, I was one of the first like drawings that got put up, and people had to start critiquing me, and this one person was like, I used he, him pronouns when referring to me, the artist.
The artist?
The artist. My professor like corrected them and everything, but I was still like, he, him, unless... And then another time, I live with 4 other people in a house, and they're all actors and they're all lovely. But we're like trying to find new roommates in like the younger kids, because all my roommates are about to graduate. One of them apparently had been assuming I was a guy this whole time, because we were like, yeah, totally. You have to meet the person who's gonna be living here with you though when you do move in, because all of us are gonna graduate, Mm-hmm. You have to meet Adrian, and he's like, oh yeah, I'd love to meet him, and it's like, well, sure, I'll take that. I mean, come on.
What a mood. What's your gender of the day today, Adrian?
First explain how it works. Like, what is this gender of the day thing?
Okay, so it's something I got from a queer support group right after I came out. The idea is everyone in the circle just kind of names what their gender of the day is in any term other than boy, girl, male, female, anything like that. It was just a fun icebreaker when we were doing it, but it's such a good way to visualize gender, because it captures that metaphorical aspect that you just don't get from standard terminology.
Yeah. Okay, so my gender of the day, after thinking about it for all of 2 seconds, is one of those leather flasks. But it's distressed. Like, this is the kind of thing that you'd see some like Mad Max would carry this, you know what I mean? So that's my gender of the day, is a worn leather flask.
Mine is a hangover. My gender of the day is the massive post-Halloween hangover from drinking an entire bottle of wine by myself.
Yeah, nice.
Ow.
Ow.
It was good wine.
It was. I'm sure it was. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening, and please leave a review to register your newly founded emotional support gaze. Good night.
Do we need the registration paperwork for this? Emotional Support Gaze is produced, hosted, and directed by Lauren and Adrian. Editing is done by Lauren Scully, and the artwork is courtesy of Adrian Snyder. The title music for ESG this week was Not Your Call by Brendan McLean, and the closing music was Cis Girls by Dyke Drama. ESG does not own any of the rights to any of the music utilized throughout the podcast and thanks the artist kindly for not suing us. You have questions for us? Disagree with something we said? Want to meet us in a Denny's parking lot for episode 2? Catch up with us and leave a review wherever you get podcasts. And as always, be gay, do crime.